Hello, welcome back to our subject, Contemporary World. And we are still in chapter 1 titled Defining Globalization. And we are done, finally. Hapit na tamahuman sa chapter 1. I hope maman nato today, okay? So we are done with these topics. And now we are targeting to finish this 2, 4, 6 topics. I hope kaya nato. First, the origins and history of globalization, hardwired, cycles, epochs, and events, broader, more recent changes, global demography, and the global migration. Okay, let's start with the origins and history of globalization. So the previous discussion answered the question, what is globalization? And the next question is, where did it start? Well, it is not easy to answer this question as well as because there are different views about it or about this. Nevertheless, it would mean no harm to look at the 5 different perspectives regarding the origins of globalization. So these are the 5 different perspectives regarding the origins of globalization. First, we have the hardwired, cycles, epochs, events, and broader recent changes. Okay, let's start with the hardwired. So according to Nayam Chanda, year 2007, it is because of our basic human need to make our lives better that made globalization possible. Therefore, one can trace the beginning of globalization from our ancestors in Africa who walked out from the said continent in the late Ice Age. So these are respectively connected to 4 aspects of globalization, and they can trace all throughout history. And also, according to Chanda 2007, the same lang po, mentioned that commerce, religion, politics, and warfare are the urge of people toward a better life. Therefore, ang hardwired proposes that globalization originated from the basic motivation of human beings to seek a better life, and history shows that our ancestors travel from Africa to other places in search of food and security. And that's hardwired. Next, we have the cycles. For and some, basiglahin nyo una-huna. Globalization is a long-term cyclical finding its origin will be a daunting task. So here on board, the description says what is important is the cycles that globalization has gone through, and that's according to Skolty year 2005. So subscribing to this view will suggest adherence to the idea that the other global ages have appeared, and that's according to Skolty year 2005. Next, there is also the notion to suspect that this point of globalization will soon disappear and reappear. Therefore, Ang cycles, di ba? Cycles. O, lingin lang siya. Ma-disappear siya, mabalik siya. Ma-disappear siya, mabalik ka siya. So therefore, cycles, it explains that there is no single point of origin in globalization, but it is a long-term cyclical process wherein the current global age today is only a modification of the global age in the past. Thus, it should be noted that the global age today will be replaced by a new cycle of globalization in the future, Papod. And also, it explain, ang cycle ha, it explain a continuous long-term cyclical process. Continuous din na siya. Ang itawag sa cycle kay continuous. Ma-disappear, ma-reappear, or whatsoever. Continuous din na siya. Okay? Next, Epochs. It's not epochs. Epochs. According to Ritzier, year 2015, cited Thurborn's 2006 great epochs of globalization. And these are also called waves. Ang kaning 6 kabuok. Again ha, these are also called waves. Okay? These are also called waves, and each other has its own origin. So the following are the sequential occurrence of the epochs. The globalization of religion, 4th to 7th centuries. European colonial conquest, late 15th century. Intra-European wars, late 18th to early 19th century. Heyday of European imperialism, in the mid of 19th century to 1918. Post-World War II period. Post-Cold War period. Again, these are the sequential occurrence of the epochs. Therefore, kung si cycles explain a continuous long-term cyclical process, ang epochs explain that there are waves of globalization that look place in the past, and each of them has its own origin. And epochs is different from the perspective of cycle, as it argues that the previous epochs are not returning in the future. Okay? Next perspective, we have the events or event. So specific events are also considered as part of fourth view in explaining the origin of globalization. If this is the case, then there are several points can be treated as the start of globalization. So let's start with Gibbon, year 1998. For example, argued that Roman conquest centuries before Christ were its origin. So this perspective, or in this perspective in terms of events, is different from cycles and epochs, as it specifies that the event is somehow responsible for the origin of globalization. And some example of the point of origin from the perspective of events are the Rosenthal 2007, which gave premium to voyages of discovery, Christopher Columbus' discovery of America in 1942. Next events, the Vasco da Gama in Europe in Cape of Good Hope in 1498, and Ferdinand Magellan's completed circumnavigation of the globe in year 1521. And mo na siya ang mga events. Okay? Next, broader, more recent changes. So the recent changes comprise the fifth view or perspective of globalization. These broad changes happened in the last half of the 20th century. So scholars today point to these three notable changes as the origin of globalization that we know today. And they are as follows. The three notable changes is the origin of globalization. First, the emergence of the United States as the global power during post-World War II. Second, the emergence of multinational corporations or MNCs. And third, the demise of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. And mo ni siya ang tulo ka notable changes as the origin of globalization in the perspective of broader, more recent changes. Okay, for your online works, I want you to answer this question. Again, for your online works, I want you to answer this question. Among the 5 perspectives on the history of globalization, which of them is the most likely the reason behind the origin of globalization? Explain your answer, make it short and brief. And I want you to comment down below your answer, and please write your name first, then your answer. Thank you. And the deadline of this online work is a week after this video posted. Thank you. And again, I want you to comment your answer on the comment section where I posted this video, sa kaninga video, okay? And now we will proceed to our next topic, which is all about the global demography. So demographic transition is a singular historical period during which mortality and fertility rates decline from high to low levels in particular country or region. So the broad outlines of the transitions are similar in countries around the world, but the pace and timing of the transitions have varied considerably. Next, the transition started in the middle or late 1700s, 1700s in Europe. And during this time, death rates and fertility began to decline. High to low fertility happened 200 years in France and 100 years in the United States. In other parts of the world, the transition began later. It was only in the 20th century that mortality declined in Africa and Asia, with the exemption of the country Japan. According to Madison, year 2001, life expectancy in India was only 24 years in the early 20th century, while the same life expectancy occurred in China, in year 1929 until 1931. Next, a remarkable effect of the demographic transition, as Shigeoki et al. Year 2002 stated, the enormous gap in life expectancy that emerged between Japan and the West on the one hand and the rest of the world on the other, page 251. So by 1820, the life expectancy at birth of Japan and the West was 12 years greater than the other countries. It increased by 20 years by 1919. It increased by 20 years by 1,900 year. Although there was an improvement in life expectancy all throughout the world in 90s to 1950. The gap had reached 22 years. And in terms of age structure, the overall trend in Japan and the West was downward until 1950. And their dependency ratio was close to 0.5. And it only increased, although temporary, when the baby boom after the Second World War occurred. So the Japan's dependency ratio, however, increased between 1888 and 1920. Its dependency ratio was higher than the West between 1920 and the early 1950s. Next, the developing countries like India and the Philippines had higher dependency ratios than the West in 19s. So a great increase of dependency ratio was caused by the decline in infant and child mortality and high levels of fertility with its peak around 1970s. Next, we have the dependency ratios started to disappear because there is a decline in global birth rate. Furthermore, the gap in fertility between the West and the less developed countries became smaller by the 21st century. Okay? And over the next 50 years, the cases of dependency ratios of these two areas in the world will be reversed. And that's according to Shigeoki et al. Year 2002. And the aging of population will cause a raise in dependency ratio starting in the West. And that's the end of the discussion in the topic global demography. And now let's move on to the last topic, which is all about the global migration. So what is global migration? So migration is traditionally governed either by push, either by push lagi sir, again. Migration is traditionally governed either by push factors such as political persecution, economic depression, war, and famine in the home country, or by pull factors such as favorable immigration policy, a labor shortage, and is similarity of language and culture in the country of destination. So again ang migration daw is traditionally governed either by push or by pull factors. Okay? So global factors which facilitate easy access to information about the country of destination also exert a significant influence. And many countries face issues of illegal migration. Other countries with similar concerns about illegal immigration include the Great Britain, Switzerland, and Greece, as well as countries in Asia. Like for example, the United States, if they faces a major influx of illegal immigration from Mexico and other Central America states. Next, the term diaspora has been increasingly used to describe migrant communities. Diasporization and globalization are closely interconnectedness, and the expansion of the latter, meaning globalization, will lead to an increase in the former. And that's according to the Epochs year 2007. And today there exists the virtual diasporas, that's according to Laguerre year 2002, which muna siya nag-utilize such as the internet to maintain the community network. Muna siya ang diasporization. Again diasporization and globalization are closely interconnected with each other. Okay? And that's the end of our discussion for today. And that's the end of our discussion in chapter 1. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you learned something new today. And if wala, palihog ko pakibalik sa video, kailangan na adjud mo'y mahibawaan na something new sa inyo ha. Okay? Again, thank you for listening, and that's the end of our chapter 1. Keep safe, everyone. God bless us all. Thank you.